Welcome to the Fuck the Stigma podcast. Today I have Adam Schmidt here with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I drove on this like windy road to get up to like the top of this like gorgeous little mountain that's like overseeing everything. This is like so cool over here.
Yeah, Topanga's a pretty place.
It's really pretty. Yeah.
I brought you here today to kind of talk about your figure skating career and the stigmas associated with figure skating.
Yeah.
And like your just overall experience with it, of things that you weren't allowed to talk about. Like I want to talk about like things that were kind of under wraps for the past few years.
Well, let me just tell you about this. The sport of figure skating is very good at portraying these images of everything's beautiful and everything's perfect, and you know, we make everything look so easy, but the reality is it's a really tough business and it's a really tough world. And it's one of those rare sports where you start young, you peak young, and you end young. So like, for example, my career started when I was 6 years old, and I retired 2 years ago at the age of 36. So I had a 30-year career. And, you know, it was like, there was a lot of good, bad, and ugly, you know, like things that happened throughout that like career. But I started as, you know, a young skater, 6 years old, like, and I didn't really get into skating because my family was particularly very much into it, or because I came from a line of, you know, past figure skaters or anything in the family. It wasn't like that.
How'd you get into it?
I got into it because, you know, like when you're a kid and your parents kind of put you in everything, like
to see what you kind of like.
Yeah, exactly. Like I did like t-ball, I did like soccer, I did tennis lessons and music and ice skating lessons. And it happened that there was a scout at the rink when I was doing my learn to skate lessons in ice skating at 6 years old. And they said to my parents, you know, he's got a lot of potential and you should pursue it. And then I feel like I blinked, and all of a sudden I was like in this world, and my other life had just disappeared.
Yeah, so it started consuming your life at 6 years old.
It started to consume my whole life. Like every conversation was always about skating. Yeah. Every thought was about skating, or my career, or my public image. And it was very frustrating a lot of times, because who I had to be in the sport, very competitive, you know, very like cutthroat, and you know, that's how everybody is in the sport. And that's not who I am at my core. Like at my core, I'm not a very competitive person. I actually want good things for everybody. I like everyone to be doing well. And that's kind of the opposite mentality that you have to adopt in the sport.
But your career took off like pretty quickly.
Yeah, like the good thing was, or I guess what the easy thing was with the career, was it started when I was young, but I took off really fast because I just had a natural ability. Yeah. And it came very easy to me in the beginning.
What was training like? Was it hard? Was there a point where you really enjoyed it? When did you
Yes. Okay. And so I know it's going to we're going to get deep into like the career later and like the bad parts and stuff, but, and the challenges, but in the beginning, yes, I loved it. Anything I believe that you're naturally talented at and that comes easy to you is going to be fun, because you don't have to put a lot of work into it, and you're just, everyone's telling you how good you are, and you're like having a good time, and it's fun. And I don't have to go to school anymore because I just am going to be skating at the rink all day. Oh, that's fun. So my day would usually start by getting up early, skating before school, which would be like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and then going to school for a couple of hours in like early grade school. And then coming out of school at lunchtime, like around 12 o'clock when everybody would be going to lunch, I would be getting picked up and going back to the training center. And I would start training all the way until the evening. And then that would that was on ice, off ice, you know, strength training. And it made for about a 15-hour day.
Damn.
I know, every single day. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
It was exhausting. And yes, I loved it in the beginning. In the beginning, I loved it because it came easy to me and it was fun. But it very shortly afterwards, it became work, very hard work, and a lot of pressure. I mean, I felt like a lot of times I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I didn't want to let anyone down. So once it got to that point and I wasn't happy anymore and it was like work, well then of course, like no one likes work. You know what I mean? Like it's.
When did it become work?
All right. So I would say 1998 was when I officially got on the national circuit.
Yeah.
And joined Team USA. So I was like 12 or 13.
Wow.
Yeah. And at that point, I already knew, okay, this isn't fun anymore. Like, I'm not having fun. Like, this is exhausting. And I'm stressed out all the time. I mean, back then, we didn't have any conversations about mental health. Mental health didn't really exist. And there were horrible stigmas around it. Yeah. I mean, it existed, of course. Yeah. But no one ever talked about it. It wasn't like the time we live in now.
Yeah. And you were struggling with mental health doing this.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't talk about it.
No. I mean, I didn't even know what it was. Like, you know, I didn't even know what it was. Yeah. No. I was, you know, I had horrible anxiety. I was depression after a certain point, but I didn't know it was anxiety. I didn't know it was depression. I didn't even know I had ADD till way later, because we're just told to like toughen up, power through it, and, you know, keep your head down and just don't complain.
Yeah, I had the same experience, like just growing up. I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't know what depression was. Yeah. Like I didn't know what it looked like that I was feeling it until like I was forced to get help for substance abuse, you know?
I look back, Elijah, and I'm like, how did I ever step foot on the ice by myself with thousands of people watching me? Like, how did I ever used to do that?
Lot. That's
I mean,
lot.
I look back and I'm like, it must have just been pure ignorance and like youthful ignorance that I didn't, like, it didn't get to me. I mean, of course I was always nervous, but the thought of even doing that now makes me terrified. Like I don't know, and I don't know how I did it. I really don't.
It was a talent.
I mean, it just sort of like, I felt like it was like I got sucked into a tornado for 30 years. Yeah. And then the tornado spit me out, and now here I am.
Like looking back at it, like what the fuck was I doing?
Yeah, and I look back and I'm like, how did I do that? How did I make it through? And not only that, but like, how did I make it through considering I was going through so much abuse and so much...
What was the abuse you were experiencing?
So first and foremost, right off the bat, I had what we would call now an eating disorder. And a lot of skaters had one.
I've heard of it.
But we didn't know, really. Again, I didn't know what an eating disorder was, right? Yeah. But I struggled with my weight. So right off the bat, I was overweight for skating. So first, I'm 6'2". So first I was too tall to be a skater. So it's like they suck me in, and then they get me in, and then they start like going to town on every flaw of mine.
You're too tall.
Like, first I'm 6'2", I'm too tall to be a skater. You know, the average skater that skates singles, I was a single skater, was 5'8", 5'9", maybe an occasional 5'10", but no one really my height, unless you were a pair skater, you know, lifting the girls. Those guys were a little bit bigger. But I wasn't. I was a single skater. So right off the bat, I was too tall. So I had to work really hard on posture and getting down in my knees, really down in my knees when I was skating, so that I would give the appearance of being shorter. And it was the opposite. Like, you know, when you meet somebody that you've seen on TV and they're like a lot smaller in person. Yeah. It was the opposite for me. When people would meet me in person after seeing me on TV, they would say, "Oh my God, you're so tall." "Oh my gosh, you're so tall." Because I had learned to have like really good posture and really get down to my knees so that I could sort of blend in. Then the second thing was, okay, so I thought, oh, I overcame that, right? Like now I'm going to be fine.
You're going to be good.
Well, no, now I'm fat. I have, you know, I wasn't the ideal weight for skating.
Why do you have to be a certain weight?
Well, because in skating, they want you to be very thin. And, you know, just like gravity, you know, like we jump in the air, we rotate. Like I was constantly, I mean, I was like going up and down, fluctuating in my weight from like, and I'm not talking about like 5 or 10 pounds here. I'm talking like 80 pounds sometimes. Like at my...
Fluctuating 80
pounds sometimes. Like in 1 year, I was 208 pounds. And in that 3 months later, I was given an ultimatum to lose 80 pounds or I was going to be thrown off the team.
What?
And I had to go from 208 pounds to 128 pounds. And I only had 3 months to do it.
And you did it.
I did it. Yeah. And again, I look back on these things and I'm like, how did I do that? Like, how did I get through that? How did I do it? But everything was so fast. Everything was fast and everything was so chaotic and everything was so high strung and the pressures were always so great that it just kind of sucked me in, and I didn't really, it's almost like until I got spit out of that tornado and it was over, I didn't really realize what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I'm reliving all of this like through memories of like now that it's over.
How long were you struggling with an eating disorder? That your whole career?
My entire career. Yeah, my entire career.
Wow.
So then I get to the place where I lose those 80 pounds. I'm down to 128 pounds, which is very low for someone that's 6'2" and height.
That is very low.
It's not healthy. I wasn't healthy, by the way. Like, you know, none of us, I shouldn't say none of us, most of us weren't healthy. We were losing large amounts of weight. We were exercising way too much. We were, you know, just putting our bodies through hell, and the impact on our like joints, our knees, our hips, our ankles, or even our shoulders when we fall, you know. And, you know, it's like once I overcame that obstacle, like, so height, check, get down on my knees, have better posture, weight, starve myself. Okay, now I'm what they want. I can barely move because I have no energy, but I'm what they want me to be. Well, then it was, oh, you know, you just don't have the commercial look. Yeah. And that's when I had to start, you know, I have dark hair now, but I'm naturally like brunette. Mm-hmm. And that's when I lightened my hair.
Oh, you'd bleach it?
Yeah. I went blonde. And then I started taking like these like classes with like choreographers, not on the ice, but off the ice, on how to like know my angles, know how to smile, look approachable. Apparently I didn't look approachable.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently I didn't have that like warm and fuzzy feeling that you would just go and approach somebody.
Yeah.
But I am
and
that person.
They needed
I'm
that?
that person.
You
though.
are that.
Well, for the commercial side you do, because I'm talking about like for sponsorships, for like, you know, press and those things, they wanted more of a commercial look. They want like the perfect like little ice princess and ice prince, you know, like that's what they want you to look like. And I didn't fit the mold, you know. And so I wish somebody would have just told me that before it all got started, you know, like if you're going to be tall, if you're not going to be super thin, and if this isn't okay, you know, then I wish someone would have told me in the beginning.
There was no warning, but like you got sucked into it.
And then I got sucked into it, and then it was like all of these problems started to be told to me.
It felt like you had to fit that mold.
Yes, and every day was a constant struggle to fit that mold. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I started making changes to myself, and I started acting different, and I started dressing differently, and I started to speak differently, and I started to just smile all the time. And like,
because you wanted to be likable.
I wanted people to know that I am not this like cold person that is not approachable, which I probably never came off as to most people, but to all the adults around me in my career, that's all they told me. So I believed it. Mm-hmm. But I honestly don't think, I know I'm not that person at my core. And I don't think I was that person then. I think it was just, the attitude was just, you're never good enough. And I think they thought that by having that sort of like motto, like you're never good enough, there's always someone that can take your place, like you should be grateful, you should be lucky you're here. I think by having that, they thought that was gonna like get us to push harder and work harder, but it really broke us down.
Yeah,
it really broke us down.
It tore you guys down, and then you just get insecure, and then
yes, very insecure. And I didn't really start to come into my own. I was also immature because of the world I was in, because I wasn't out socializing, I wasn't doing anything. I was just my career and just skating and training and, you know, going on tour and going, you know, and doing this press thing or doing this. And it was very much the opposite of what a social normal kid does when they go to school and they have friends and they have like a locker and you know, and they go to,
do you wish you got
sleepovers and proms and homecomings and stuff?
Do you wish you had that experience?
Of course. Yeah, of course I do. I mean, the only reason why I think that is because everyone always says like the grass is greener on the other side, or everyone always thinks that, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Laisha, if I would have been comfortable having just a normal life. You know, I don't know, because there's a lot of things in my career and stuff that I was really proud of and that I'm still very proud of. But there were a lot of things that were really difficult and tough. So,
But like now you get to share that story and like bring the awareness.
I didn't know how powerful sharing your story is and can be. I really didn't realize that. I'm a very private person, and you weren't
always a private person.
I wasn't able to be because of my career, right? I had to be, a public person, which meant I had to always be on 24/7, and very similar to what Jordana told you in her podcast about, it was like every day was a competition. Every day was trying to be upstage each other, and always like, even though we weren't even competing against each other, like, girls and boys don't compete against each other. So like,
it's just women.
You would think there wouldn't be any drama there, or we wouldn't have to like impress each other or always have to one up each other, but we did, and that was the world we lived in, and it was every single day. Every single day.
Sounds so exhausting.
And it was exhausting.
Your days are just putting on a show.
Putting on a show. Yeah. I mean, because your image was and the politics that were involved in figure skating were immense. I mean, you had to know the right people. If you made one mistake, like in a practice at a rink where no judges were, no officials were or anything, and just on a regular average day, the people that were with you and saw it would spread if you did something. So if you weren't doing well, you knew that day the entire country, or at least the region, was going to know, oh, he's slipping. Oh, he's not on point. We saw him at the rink the other day. He's not that, he's falling apart. Oh, he gained that weight back. It was always something.
Yeah. I heard you won lawsuits against coaches and...
Yes.
What was that about?
Okay, so... Do you remember the big scandal with gymnastics where that team doctor was abusing like all of the gymnasts?
Yeah.
After that big scandal happened in gymnastics with the team doctor and the abuse, the Olympic Committee started looking into other Olympic, umbrellaed sports to see if anything similar was going on. And sure enough, it was. Figure skating was the very next sport they went into, and sure enough, there was plenty to choose from. And I was, unfortunately, I don't like to use the word victim, but for lack of a better word to use, I was the victim of abuse when I was...
What kind of abuse?
It was mental, emotional, and physical, plus sexual.
Really?
Yes.
How old were you? Like, and how long was it going on?
Sure. Yeah, it was... Well, the sexual abuse started when I was... like around 11 or 12, and it went until like I was about 14 or 15.
Yeah. Did you talk to anybody about it, or did you wait till like later on?
So let me back up and start so you can kind of get like an idea of like how my career went. So I started off as an amateur skater at 6 years old. I trained, and then I made Team USA, and that's when you represent your country competing internationally for the United States.
Okay.
And then I was competing around the world and doing pretty well, training for the Olympics, training for the World Championships, training to be like, this was going to be my career and my future. Then after I had what was pretty successful of a competitive career, I mean, I never won the Olympic gold, but I think there's a lot of like misunderstandings when it comes to like our sport and the achievements. It's almost like, to the public that doesn't know anything about the sport, if you didn't get an Olympic gold and were on the Wheaties box, like, then you must not have been successful. Yeah. And it's like, no. Like, there is, just making Team USA means you are a success. Just being able to represent this country that I love the United States, and I've traveled the entire world, and I turned professional after a pretty good competitive career. And then I signed with this company called Stage Entertainment, and they were based in Holland. And I started touring with Holiday on Ice, which was this great tour. I got to skate with legends like Surya Bonali, Katarina Witt, a lot of really great skaters. It was really special. And I toured for years. And when I say I toured, like, I was on the international tour, the world tour. And I would be touring 9 to 11 months out of the year. So this wasn't just like a 1 month, like, do a couple cities and like come back.
Yeah, you're touring all year.
I was on a global world tour, and every year for 5 years, I was out of the country 9 to 11 months out of every year. I never really saw my family. I never really was able to have any sort of like stability like at home, because I was constantly packing and living out of my luggage and moving from hotel to tour bus to planes to just, all over Europe and Asia mostly, because figure skating is a very popular sport in the world, but not in the United States.
It's more huge. Popular in other countries.
I mean, it's very popular in Europe and Asia, where they kind of appreciate more of the arts, especially like places like Russia. It's like, I mean, you're a god if you're a skater in Russia. Like, you're treated amazing. That's why it's sort of sad to hear all of this stuff that's going on with Russia and everything, because I had great experiences in Russia. I mean, I was like treated like a king there. They really show you a good time when you're an athlete and figure skating there, because they admire it so much.
Yeah.
So I know everyone says like Russia's bad, this, but it's like I had nothing but great experiences in Russia.
There's a lot of shit talking in Russia.
Yeah.
About Russia.
Yeah. And we're at war. Yeah. Or I guess there is a war and we're helping or something. I don't know. I'm trying to I live my life offline, Elisha, and which I told you earlier. And that means I don't do social media anymore now that I'm retired. I don't, get on my phone and check things. And I don't watch TV. Yeah. So I just watch like Netflix and streaming things, right? And I started getting into listening to podcasts. Yeah. So this is exciting. It's my first podcast, by the way. I've never done one before. But anyway, so then you toured the world, and that went on for about 5 years. And then I retired from professional skating, and then I became a coach for Team USA, coaching like a junior team of Team USA for the United States. Okay. And I was a really successful coach, because everything that I had gone through and learned throughout my career, working with all the best coaches and trainers in the entire world, I was able to pass on to my kids. And then they were very successful. And I did well as a coach. Like, I had like a regional champion, a sectional champion, and a national champion at one point. And for a young coach, that was a pretty big deal, And then after coaching, then I got offered by Lifetime, the Lifetime Network, to do this reality series, which, by the way, they presented to me as a docu-series, which, okay, FYI, docu-series is code for trashy reality show.
Really?
Yes. So I was fooled, but don't be fooled. Okay, in the future. Okay, don't be fooled. It is really that's exactly what it was. So there was this show on Lifetime Network called Dance Moms.
Yes.
Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they decided, because it was such a success, to franchise it off and start doing Dance Moms in other cities and stuff. And then they added Ice Moms.
Ice Moms?
Yes. And they stuck with that original format of Dance Moms and just applied it to the ice. And which dance and skating are two totally different things, they're very different. So they were following the same form. It was a nightmare. I hated doing the show. It was awful. And I had to narrate the show. So then I do this reality show for Lifetime about my experiences transitioning from a skater to now being a coach, and my dynamics with the parents and the kids. Well, it was awful experience for me. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. It was nothing like I had expected. But at that time in my career, like we talked about earlier, I was so unhappy, and I wanted out so bad that I was telling my team to say yes to everything, so that I could just keep working, so that I could finally get to the point where I could retire and get out of it, because that's how much I hated it. And not hated it, but it was so unhealthy for me.
Yeah.
And then during that reality show and the coaching thing, and that I was doing these, Skating with the Stars is, Dancing with the Stars?
Yes, Dancing with the Stars.
Well, in Europe and Asia, they have what's called Skating with the Stars, or Dancing on Ice. And it's just as popular there as Dancing with the Stars is here. And it's like in every country in Europe. So I did Dancing on Ice in Holland. And I believe I did Dancing with the Stars in UK as well. Or Dancing on Ice, sorry.
Yeah.
Dancing on Ice, not Dancing with the Stars. No. But it's just as popular in Europe and Asia. Dancing on Ice as Dancing with the Stars. And it's the same concept, you get paired up with a celebrity, and then instead of just dancing together, you've got to skate with them on the ice, which is, again, why do people keep putting dance and figure skating together? I don't know, because it's artistic, I guess, but I mean, we're a sport, you know, figure skating was a sport. And that's something that used to always bug me as well, that, you know, it was one of those subjective, very few, like small percentage of sports where you're not just judged and you can't just win based on your technical ability. It's not like you can cross the finish line first or get the ball in the basket more times than the other. It was everything you were doing, your technical elements, and then subjectively the judges would decide, did you connect with me? Did you perform to my taste? And that's subjective. And that's how the results would always fluctuate. Mm-hmm. And it was tough because you'd go out to a competition and you'd hit all your triples and you'd think, okay, I got this. And then you'd end up like second or third or something. And I just remember like banging my head against the wall constantly, like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And just never knowing, because it is one of those sports where it has that one component to it that makes it very difficult and can make things a little bit unfair, to be honest. So then after I was done doing those things, I sort of got into real estate. I was doing a skating show. It's a funny story. I was doing a skating show for Nancy Kerrigan. Do you remember Nancy Kerrigan?
No.
You don't know Nancy Kerrigan? No. God, how old are you?
19.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Do you remember Tanya Harding? Have you ever heard the name Tanya Harding? Mm-mm. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, back in the day, you gotta like Google it. Back in the day in the 90s, there was a huge scandal in skating. There were two very good female skaters. One's name was Nancy Kerrigan. The other one's name was Tanya Harding. And they were rivals, competitors. Well, Tanya Harding hired hitmen.
Wait, Tanya Harding.
Hired hitmen to go take out her competition, Nancy Kerrigan. And the guys came in and like beat her with a club, her knee, so that she couldn't compete. And it was one of the biggest scandals, not just in our sport, but it was a worldwide story. This was before the 24-hour news. This is just when the 24-hour news cycle was starting to become a thing. So it was on TV 24 hours. It was before the OJ case, before all of that. Yeah. And it was huge. And they've made so many movies about it now because it's been like 20, 25 years later. They've made movies. I, Tanya is a movie about it.
I think I actually had, somebody made a song about Tanya Harding.
Yeah, I'm sure. She's used in a lot of things because it's always like, the joke is like, if you want to take out your competition, you pull a Tanya Harding. Yeah. You go hit, and like, yeah. I mean, it's not, but we were laughing at it, but it was really, I mean, the poor Nancy Kerrigan was very severely injured. Mm-hmm. And these men they didn't know what they were going to do. They just had to take her out of the competition. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I'm doing a skating show for Nancy Kerrigan in her ice theater in South Carolina, a place I'd never been to or heard of. And that was in the year 2008. Well, do you remember in 2008, you might still be too young, but you remember in 2008 when we had the severe crash of the market and the economy? Yes. And everything was in foreclosure. Everyone was losing their homes. It was very sad. Well, the team of people that I have that run my money and stuff were like, everyone had to kind of get creative in those times. And they started to say, well, why don't you start buying up some of these real estate properties in foreclosure and turn them into rental properties? So then I had those for 12 years, in 2008 till now. So then I was like managing those and had those. And it was, so that was my career, like all the way. And then just towards the end of my career, right when I was about to retire, the big scandal came out with the gymnasts. Mm-hmm. And then they started looking into skating. And then they were like, all of a sudden it's like, I got a phone call that there's an investigation into U.S. figure skating and abuse. Your name has come up. You fit a timeline of like a potential person that may have been abused during this time, which was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, we're pursuing it. We're taking action. And you are going to be a part of it, whether you want to be or not.
You didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice.
But you wanted to.
I didn't want to.
Oh, no, you didn't?
I didn't want to. And this is where I get a lot of credit that I get sort of like shy about and feel like I don't deserve for kind of being this pioneer in the sport that went public with everything and was able to get laws like created and signed and sponsored and then, voted on in the House and Senate and signed into law by the President of the United States, called the Empowering Olympic and Amateur Athletes Act. But if little does everyone know that I was told I was going to be in the situation whether I wanted to be or not. So I had two choices. I could either get ahead of the story, or I could let somebody else tell it for me. Ooh. And those were my options. So my team put together and worked with ABC News, and my publicist put together an agreement with ABC to do a documentary where I went public and shared my story, like on a big national channel, like a legitimate, interview, and explain everything, because otherwise it was just going to be told for me, and my voice wouldn't have been heard, and who knows what could have been skewed or what. So that's why I ended up doing that. And that is what led to the lawsuits and things, was because it wasn't just me. I mean, these were things that were happening with a lot of athletes. And when it came to me, I just decided, because I was so uncomfortable with it, and that I didn't want to be known for any of that. I didn't want it to be public. I was so ashamed and humiliated. So I just decided to roll my sleeves up and let's get through this as fast as we can. That's what my mentality was. Yeah. Was just to roll my sleeves, get through it, do as much as I can, and get out. Because I did not want this thing going on for years and years and years, and dragging out and having a public trial and doing all that stuff. It was humiliating. It was embarrassing. It's not cool, and it's not like cool and cute to say and talk about you were abused. And when you were abused, it's like, especially to the world. Yeah. But it had an impact. It had an impact.
You think it made a difference?
It did, because 12 days after I shared my story, my documentary was aired, wholesale change was made in the sport. Coaches were fired, banned for life. No one wanted to go to court and do a whole, trial, because obviously they knew they were going to lose, so everyone settled. And, it was the largest settlement in U.S. figure skating history. It was something like $3.5 million between like the rinks and the coaches and the, all of the entities. But that was something that also embarrassed me. I'm very private. I don't really like to talk about money and talk about those things. And I definitely don't want attention for those reasons. So it was really important to me that when that happened, that I make it clear to the public and to my team and to everybody that this was not me trying to come out and get attention or try to get some money. So let's make that very clear from the beginning. And we did. And we took that money and we put it in a trust that is split between my 4 charities that I support, and that money went to charity. I wouldn't touch that money, not with a 10-foot pole. That's blood money. Yeah. It's blood money, Like, I worked an entire career, Elisha, and I just work and save enough money so I could retire, and then someone's going to come in with a pen and write a check that's going to, basically give me everything that I had just worked so hard for over 30 years. And no, it's not that easy. You're not getting away that easy. No, I'm not just taking a settlement and shutting up and walking away. I got to business. I rolled up my sleeves. I went and worked with Congress. I got a law drafted, sponsored by a Republican and a Democrat, which how hard it is to get even bipartisan these days. And I got a bipartisan bill sponsored and written and voted through the House and the Senate. And then through one of my charities that I work with, because I'm very passionate about my charities.
What charities do you work for? So
I have 4 charities: Veterans and Wounded Warriors, Children with Leukemia, the Humane Society, and Local Police and Fire. I think those are all really important. I just recently took on a board seat with the Children with Autism Foundation. So that'll be 5 charities. And because I have the time now, I can sort of get more involved and active in them. But
I love that so much.
But none of
Fuck
what
the stigmas next.
Fuck the stigmas next. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, so nothing was, I didn't do anything for the attention or for the praise of doing it. You know what I mean? Like oh wow, you were such a pioneer. Oh, thank you for speaking. Oh, you got this done. Like everyone praised me. No, it was the opposite. I was so embarrassed. But I will say to the credit of the politicians, they're known for not getting anything done and not being able to work together, but boy, did they work together with me. Awesome. And they were really great. And I was I was afforded the opportunity to meet the vice president and second lady. This is in the last administration with the Trump administration. So Mike Pence and Karen Pence. And we met through my charity, Veterans and Wounded Warriors, at Camp Pendleton in San Diego. And once they met me and I told them my story and what I was in the middle of working and doing, they helped by punting that over the finish line and getting that bump to the top of the list of priorities to get through Congress and then to get signed by President Trump into law before he left office.
Wow.
Because his second term wasn't guaranteed. And we see now he didn't get the second term. So that may not have ever gotten done and happened.
That's actually
so many
amazing.
bills happen and get lost, or they sit there for years and nothing ever happens. It's so sad. But I had a really positive experience with politicians and getting things done, and everyone was great and agreed on this together jointly.
That is awesome.
Yes.
Especially because like there's a lot of people don't fucking like the Trump administration. A lot of people do. There's like ew, Trump, you know, but like they did something. They made a change with this.
Let me tell you something about Donald Trump. Okay? Let me tell you, not Donald Trump, like I know him. let me rephrase that. Let me tell you something about the Trump administration.
Okay.
I worked with the Trump administration a lot for, obvious reasons to get this Empowering Olympic and Amateur Athletes Act into law. And I had a chance and an opportunity to meet a lot of the Trump family and a lot of the surrogates and a lot of the government and like appointed positions. And one little fun fact that I think people would be surprised to know about President Trump is he actually appointed the first openly gay man to a government seat in his administration.
Really?
Rick Grinnell. Rick Grinnell, I believe, don't quote me here, but I believe he was the director of national intelligence.
What is that?
I don't know. Sounds like really important.
Yeah,
sounds like national importance, national security importance. Yes, and and so when they did all that for me and got that done for me, I sort of felt obligated to, when they asked me to help with the campaign for 2020 for the re-election, I did. So I was out at like pride festivals. I was at like rallies with like Tiffany Trump, with like Rick Grinnell, and the second lady. And
they really supported the
You see, no one would have known.
Media kind of puts it out that he fucking
hates everybody.
They hate gay people.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting.
And so I mean, I never knew that. I was surprised to hear that. So I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that. And, speaking of stigmas, there's a big stigma around being a Republican.
There is.
Oh, yeah. You don't
being
think
a gay
so?
Republican.
Or even being a young Republican, being a gay Republican. Just there's a lot of stigma around that, and because we're kind of lumped into a category of like, oh, we must be like these horrible people that, like you said, like hate gays and hate this and, are like anti everything. And it's just not, it's not very true. I mean, both parties have things that are, great qualities and then awful qualities, and that I disagree with and agree with. But I just tend to fall more towards the traditional conservative side. And, but on social issues, I'm progressive, but there is a big stigma around, like, I used to do rallies for the 2020 re-election, and I would do like campaign stops with like the Trump family in Michigan, because I was actually born in Michigan, and that's a big swing state. So I went on the road and was campaigning and doing everything back in like October, November, leading up to the election in 2020. For Trump, and because I was gay, I got all the gay events. So like the Trump Pride Coalition or this Pride thing, I got a lot of that. But very supportive, very nice. And how cool is it that like me and my little old me, like in my life, in my career, got to meet like so many members of the government, so many high-ranking officials in our government, and the vice president and the second lady, and Tiffany Trump was a really nice girl. She was a woman, rather. She's a very nice woman, and she was very sweet, very kind, and we did stops together. Rick Grinnell was super awesome. His husband would come along on the stops, and, I would just share my story and share, why I was grateful to the administration and for what I was grateful to. And honestly, Lisha, that would have gone to any president that would have helped me like that. Yeah. Any administration that would have helped me. Because I don't, like I said, I live my life offline, and I don't get super involved or consumed in politics or social media.
I'm scared to get involved in politics. I'm also very.
Are you scared? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just also very uninformed, and part of me wants to be ignorant to
oh my gosh.
all things politics.
So fast forward to now that I'm retired, I don't watch the news. I like being ignorant to and living in my own little bubble of like little happiness.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to know what's going on because it's always bad news. The news is always bad. It's never happy news.
No, yeah, no. The news is strictly bad. Like sad shit that's happening. Like,
yes, and it's depressing, and it's like I don't want.
It's not good
I don't want it in my life. It's not good for my mental health.
I wanted to ask, like, all of this, like your life, your career for 30 years, passing, like, what effect did all of that have on your mental health?
Okay, so that's a really good question. It took a very big toll on my mental health. So everything that I had went through and what was going on in my career took a very serious toll on my mental health. In 2016, when that happened, I just couldn't take anymore. You know, it was a constant pressure, constant stress, constant working, no childhood, no life, no anything, just that. And I don't mean to come off as like ungrateful. I'm very grateful for everything that I have, and the sport and my career gave me everything I have. I saw the whole world because of it. I met people from all walks of life. I had impact, as you know, on certain things in legislation, even like it's just crazy, and change and reform, and then perform to so many people and fans across the world. And that is a privilege. And those are all like the wonderful things about it. But everything negative in my life was also because of the career. My mental health, especially, it took a huge toll on me. I had a total collapse, breakdown.
And it was public, you said.
It was public, yeah, because in 2016, I wasn't retired yet, so I was still in the sport, and I was getting close to retiring, and I just had enough, and I kept going to and this is really important, I think, for people to know, because this was a mistake I made that I think most people, or a lot of people maybe have made the same mistake. I kept going to my doctor, my private doctor, and my private physician with issues. As I got older, the issues kept getting worse and worse and worse. I can't sleep. My stomach's in knots. I have anxiety. I'm depressed. I'm sad. Like all of this stuff. And every time I would say that, he'd give me a medication. And each time I'd take a medication, something new would happen. I'd have like a side effect or something to it. And before I knew it, Lisha, I had this bag that I would carry around with me and alarms on my phone, because I follow everything to the letter, you know. So if the doctor's telling me to take this tablet twice daily, set the alarms whatever it was, I did. And I had this, like, I think I had 11 prescriptions at one point, medications, different medications that were all being prescribed to me by the same doctor. And it caused me to suffer a drug-induced psychosis. And
by drugs prescribed by your doctor,
not drugs like
prescription
drugs. And that was the first thing I said. The last memory I sort of have from when that happened was I was gathering up my things. It was around the beginning of the year, so maybe it was like 2017, the beginning of 2017, end of 2016. I was collecting my things to go meet with my accountant, or so I thought. I wake up like the next day in a hospital at Cedars-Sinai. In Beverly Hills. I wake up and I'm like, where am I? Why am I here? What's going on? And they tell me, you've suffered a drug-induced psychosis and you're being treated here for that. And they looked up all of the medications and everything on the computer that I was taking. They could see everything I was taking. And they're like, you're in a problem right now. Because I said, hold on, I don't do drugs. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm a professional athlete. Like, you think I have time for drugs? Like, I can't do drugs. Like, you got the wrong person here. This couldn't be me. And they're like, no, you're prescription drugs. And so they were like, you know, we can see everything on the screen. You're not doctor shopping. You're not any of this. You're doing everything right. You're listening to your doctor. Your doctor has it wrong. Mm-hmm. Isn't that sad?
It is.
My doctor had it wrong. But he was a nice man and he was trying his best. What I needed was mental health help.
Yes. And he was just like, what he knew how to do was prescribe drugs.
Right. And that's all he did. Well, fast forward to years of that, and I all of a sudden am in Cedars-Sinai Hospital, suffering in a bed from a drug-induced psychosis. And it was very public, and it was embarrassing. It was humiliating. And I spent the next 2.5, 3 years of my life crisscrossing this country to get the best help, going into treatment to get better, because I was determined to overcome this. I wasn't going to let it sink me. I had worked too hard. I worked too hard, and I was this close to being done. So I wasn't going to let it.
Yeah.
It
was, you were seeking mental health treatment and you got it.
And I did. Yeah.
You got better?
I did. It took a long time. It took a couple of years. It's very hard. And then there's a stigma around that, you know.
Seeking the help.
Yeah, because, I came off to anyone who had admired me before, like my family or my friends or fans, it was almost like everyone looked at me differently when I suffered that breakdown. Like I was no longer this like perfect image, or no longer like this wholesome and everything was right. I was like lumped into what I felt was this class of like a that would cause you to get into a drug-induced psychosis, like a drug addict almost. And as someone that never did drugs, that really hurt me, and that like put a lot of that took a very big emotional toll on me. And it was something that was hard for my family. It was hard for my friends. It was hard for me. And yet here I am now. Thank God those years of doing that helped me, because I'm now in a place where I'm actually happy with who I am, and I'm content and secure with my life right now. So in a way, it sort of saved me.
Yeah. It did. I feel like it happened for a reason for you.
Yeah.
And then you work like on a daily basis with your mental health.
Yes. And I still do. I still to this day, I still suffer from anxiety. I still suffer from depression. I still have ADD. But it's more controlled now. And a lot of it was situational. And when you take away all of that, tornado, like I say, of like a career and all that stuff and all those people that were so toxic in it really did help and change a lot of like how I look at things and how I feel. And now I just try to always be positive, and be like upbeat. Yeah. Smile a lot.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
In your career, did you like mingle a lot with the other skaters?
Yes.
So like, did you guys talk about how
No one talked about it. And lo and behold, now everyone's talking about it now.
Yeah.
And about like how back then they were all suffering, but none of us talked to each other about it because it was so taboo.
Yeah.
Like, and all we wanted to do, and all that was drilled into us and embedded into us, was to be perfect and to never have flaws. So that was a huge flaw. And I remember a friend of mine in skating, who, my very good friend, one of my best friend, she suffered a nervous breakdown and a collapse in skating back in the early 2000s. Mental health wasn't even used as a word back then. Like, no one knew. And I just remember when I hit my low point in 2016, I reached out to her for help. Like, because she was the only one I ever knew that had gone through anything like that. And it was Jordana.
It was Jordana?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And, because she was so amazing, and she was like on the rise, like we both were. And at around 17 or 18, she just tanked, and from mental health and from just everything that I had gone through. And I was so grateful to her, because I was able to learn a lot through her. And so when it happened to me, I knew who to call.
Yeah.
And I called her. And she was so supportive, and she helped me, because Aisha, a lot of people turned their backs on me. Like they did when this happened. No one really wanted to be associated. There was like stigmas around all of it. No one wanted to be associated with like fall from grace or a mess. And it was so sad. It was really sad. I never felt more alone in my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah. And my family didn't even, really know how to deal with it, because I used to see my family like once a year, like if I was lucky, because I was working all the time. So it's not like we had this super close relationship. And, they tried, and I think they really did try, but they didn't really know how to handle it. They didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
And it was hard. So you know, I don't blame them or anything, but it was really difficult, and it put a strain on our relationship, what little relationship we had, and it was embarrassing. And, you know, I'm so happy that Fuck the Stigma exists, because it's like, I feel like we're at a place now in life where everybody has either personally experienced mental health issues or knows somebody directly that has.
Yes.
That's how close it is to home.
Mm-hmm.
And for there to be stigmas around it in 2022, when we either all have it or know someone directly that has it, is ridiculous. It needs to be blown away.
Exactly.
Yes, it does.
Fuck the stigma.
Right? Yeah, fuck the stigma.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about this whole thing. Like, shining the light on like what's happened. Yeah. And with you and sharing your story.
Because it's happening to so many people.
Yeah.
It's happening to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the experience I had when my eyes opened, I was open to a whole world that I didn't know existed. The recovery world.
Yeah.
The treatment world. That was a world to me, that there were so many people from all different walks of life and backgrounds that were suffering and were there for help. And that made me feel so much better.
That you weren't alone.
That I wasn't alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's a great documentary out on HBO. I want to say it's called The Weight of Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Phelps, the famous swimmer, he produced it. And it's a documentary about athletes. I think you should watch it. I think you'd really understand sort of like how we all feel as athletes once the Olympics are over, once the career is over, once the spotlight is off, how we sort of acclimate back into normal society and have a life when we really didn't know anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really good documentary. And there were 2 figure skaters in it, one of which was my friend back in the day when all of that was going on with me. And never in a million years would I've ever known, because she never said anything.
Wow.
And I never said anything. And I think a lot of it was because we didn't know.
That blows my mind that like you guys were all going through the same thing, and it's just like if one person talked about it when it was going on,
changed everything.
Yes.
It would have. And you know, Jordana was really like a great kind of pioneer in the movement, because it happened to her. It must have been so embarrassing. It must have been because no one had gone through it before, and she was the first. So it must have been so hard on her to be the first one to have to go through it. But she sure did help a lot of people, because, I mean, circle back to when I, you know, had my breakdown, she was the first one I reached out to for help. I didn't know what to do or where to go or what, you know, who to talk to. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I find myself in this position, and what do you do? Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was wonderful. I mean, I thank God for her every day. And I'm so happy that she's in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a fun time at her wedding.
Yeah, dude, it was fun.
Yeah, and she's, you know, we were boyfriend girlfriend actually.
That's so cute.
Can you believe that? We were boyfriend girlfriend.
I can see it.
It was so cute. It was so cute. Elisha, we were some like tough cookies too. We were tough. We were like badasses. We pushed all of the social norms and the like restrictions in skating to the very edge. We'd push everything to the limit. I love that. Yeah.
All right. But yeah, thank you so much, Adam, for coming on here and talking.
Yeah, of course.
It
was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this. I mean, it's very important.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal for me to like do an interview, because I'm retired now, and I am a private person, like I said. So I felt this was so important to do that I came out of my little shell to come do this for you, because I think it's
I greatly appreciate that so much.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you, and thanks again for everything.
Thank you.